and we're going to talk about accessing multiplayer VR games and the quest for fun.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I am Jessica Manins from Beyond. I am sitting here in New Zealand inside my house, like many of you are, but I'm excited to be able to present some of the work that we have been doing here for the last couple of years around making accessible multiplayer VR games and our quest for fun and joy. I'm going to start off by playing you a little video, which is of my father, who is 70 years old, and at Christmas he decided to make a zip line. So I'm just going to play you that first and then explain a little bit about why.
3, 2, 1, take off! Whoa!
Oh, are you okay?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that is my dad, and that is where I grew up in the country in New Zealand. And he's made that zip line, and as you see, he bangs into the bush and he laughs and he's happy, and we had some fun and didn't quite work out exactly as planned, and we had to cut that bush down. But the reason I play you that is because this is the kind of environment that I grew up in, and this is very much the environment and how I have kind of looked at my career and the work that I do. You know, it's about experimenting, it's about having fun, and it's also about realizing that it's not always going to go to plan. It doesn't always work out first time. There's bumps along the way, but as long as you kind of keep going and get back up there again and try and enjoy the ride, then you know, you can have a successful life and career. And for me, VR has been very much like that zip line. It has not been all that smooth. It's been super bumpy, but man, it has been fun. And so, I want to tell you a little bit about kind of how we got to where we are today. And I guess to kind of start with, I am not a gamer, so I need to kind of let you know that I didn't study gaming, and you know, although we've produced a game, that's not how I got to where we are today. I actually studied film and theatre, and then I ended up working in technology and in SaaS kind of companies for some time, but always with a love of entertainment. But there was one game that I played religiously as a child, and some of you will recognize this game, and if you do, hopefully it'll make you smile right now, because this was just Monkey Island. This was just the best. And I just loved all the banter. You know, I love the silliness and the banter that they brought. And so I often think about this game when we're developing the work that we're doing here in VR at Beyond. So when we got to this place a few years ago, it kind of came from this quest for finding fun, for bringing joy. And it was actually a couple of years ago, I was at AWE, and I'd kind of gone around all the different stalls, you know, and looked at everything, 30 odd different AR glasses for enterprise, all these things, and was trying to understand, you know, where's my place in VR? And we've been making a lot of different content, but nothing had really sparked the joy that I wanted to have in my life and to bring to others. And then I went into the play area. You know, the one, and you get to go and try everything, and it's all about entertainment and games and fun. And I tried a multiplayer VR game, and it wasn't the most smoothest experience, but I loved that it was social and it was collaborative, and you know, we were able to do it together, and it was so immersive, and it was super fun. And I came back to New Zealand and went, we need to look at this, and we need to look at the model, and then figure out how can we build something, you know, that has all of these elements of fun, of mastery, you know, that there's challenge to it, that it has imagination, you know, it's that anyone can kind of get in there, it's accessible, it doesn't matter if you're 8 or you're 80, that it has seriousness to it, and in that element that it's healthy, you know, there's movement, it's physical, it's not just sitting down, and that there's people fun, which is about relationships. You know, it's one of those things that is just key for our well-being, that we come together as friends or as strangers, and we participate in a game together that brings us that fun. And so we really wanted to, map out something that was going to bring all of those areas together into a multiplayer VR game that was going to spark joy, and it was going to be accessible. It was not going to cost the earth to bring to a location. And so looking at those problems, we saw that there wasn't really any arena scale multiplayer VR games. There's some brilliant stuff out there. People were leading the way with the big backpacks, OptiTracks, outside in tracking, but a lot of it was violent. A lot of it wasn't the stuff that I would want my son to be playing. And it just didn't have that same accessibility, especially when it came to setup costs or for people to play. And so with those problems in mind, and then those elements of the fun that we wanted to bring, we started looking at our game Oddball and designing our game Oddball. And of course, the Quest was coming out, and we knew that the Quest was going to answer a lot of the problems that the industry had been facing in terms of this cost, accessibility. We don't have wires. So suddenly free roam arena style, VR had this new opportunity and this new market that was opening, and we're excited to be developing and kind of be at the forefront of what this was. Looking at what people needed, I guess we call it like location-based VR in a box. That's what we were looking at as a product. How can we pull all the elements, use Unreal Engine, have a game, and then, build on top of that other game, have a system so that if you were a licensee, you can easily manage that game within your space. And then also some of these physical, elements to it, like a launcher that you can hold and things that you might be able to touch, and some of that kind of mixed reality element within what we were delivering. So we started on this, and now of course it's research and development, right? We're not just a typical game studio in doing this, because we're using new technology and we're trying to do new things within a physical and a digital space. So I thought I'd kind of take it on a little bit of a journey of kind of what are some of these learnings we had as we started building this game within our warehouse in Wellington. And here's kind of the starting image you can see here is one of our team, Alex, and then you can see his digital, avatar of a panda. And we're a very small little team of 5 here. So we don't have big budgets, and a lot of the assets you'll see in these we've taken actually from some amazing artists who've made assets for the store, and they're based here in Wellington too. And then we've just kind of modified them and adapted them for the Quest and for our own purposes. But you can see that we've also started out here with some walls. Now these are all pallets. These are plastic pallets that we got on the equivalent of eBay, kind of $800 to fill our warehouse. And the reason we wanted these is we wanted to try and achieve this immersion where you can actually feel the wall, and it's digitally represented by there's a digital one and there's a physical one. And what we found in our R&D learnings was that's hard. It's like super hard. Walls are hard. If you get just one slight little bit off, in terms of your tracking, then someone's going to hurt themselves. And safety is kind of one of those things that you just has to be your number one priority. There's the fun and the joy, but if it's not safe, then no one can play it. So we ended up removing those walls, and now you can see here in our warehouse, just as an open space. You can also see that we've got this scaffolding up here, and that's because when we started, we didn't actually have the Quest. We didn't have a Quest at all. We weren't an early developer who had been given one to test on. So we had to use OptiTracks and start building and experimenting with things, using the backpack PCs and the OptiTracks, knowing that that's not what we wanted, because it wasn't going to achieve our purpose of accessibility. It's just that we were limited in terms of, being in New Zealand saying, hey, give us some headsets. And so we developed a space. It's full of sticky tape. It's not particularly fancy. The warehouse itself is in the kind of the outskirts of Wellington. We're a pretty small little city, but I love it. It's a wonderful place to be. But we rented this old warehouse and we started doing it up. And then my mum said, "Where are you? What's your new office?" And I showed her where it was, and she said, "That's your grandfather's building." So it was this weird, strange, small world moment where my grandfather, who passed away many years ago, had originally built this building. and he had his electrical company based here. And my mum said she pretty much grew up in this warehouse. And here I had, not knowingly, rented it and made it into this VR R&D space. So it's a little bit of a side story, but it's one of those things where I think, everything kind of happens for a reason, and I'm here in this space full of sticky tape. And so here's some of my friends and others playing, our game, and you can see that they're holding these kind of what we call launchers, types of guns that are attached to the Quest controller. So we've got the Quest now, we're into development, and we've made these, we 3D printed some parts and whatnot, and played around with the weight, and they were great. They were really great, but I'll in my learnings, I'll tell you what's kind of happened with them in our current day. So what we were trying to do was, make the space, make everything, physical and digital match together. And one of the things that we discovered when we started to build was that there was an opportunity to make small spaces feel vast. And we really wanted to play on this and develop this. How can we stretch the space? And that's what we kind of called it as we started to develop this stretch space. How can we take a map? You can see here, this is one of our original maps that we started. And how can we make it feel much bigger when you're in the game than the actual physical, footprint? We were starting off with about a 12 by 12 meter space. And this is what this map that you're looking at is. You can see that there are these blue kind of ovals. Those are actually our portals. So they transport you from one area of the map to another area of the map. And then that digital space between, like the water, for example, when you're in the game, that feels, like really vast and like you're in a really big map. But essentially, two of these little ovals are actually, back to back digitally, physically. So the space is much smaller than the digital space. And this was something we spent a lot of time working on, and we really felt like it was a big point of difference that we wanted to have from, what others were potentially working on. So I'm just going to play you the first level that we built that demonstrates, where we started with these physical assets, that you're holding with the, the actual walls and the game itself. So we're just going to watch that now. Cool. So you can see what we've built in this first part of our of Oddball and our game, and it was something amazing. It was a lot of fun. People were enjoying it, but we've got a different product that we've released. So that's kind of the first stage that you've seen there. Now I'm going to talk you through some of the kind of key learnings, and these are actually from some of my team. I wanted to I'd said to them, what if you could tell people some stuff about building multiplayer VR games for the Quest? What would you say to them? And these are some of these kind of key things that you might not think about. Buying batteries. Honestly, we go through so many batteries. In the end, of course, we've put rechargeables, but man, you go through a lot of batteries and cables, and you want to make sure you mark those headsets because we have so many of them. This is really, you're building for a mobile headset. So there's a lot that you have to optimize in terms of the design, and avoiding shadows and dynamic lighting is a really good tip if you were getting into this. Play, test, iterate. Like this is, we know this, but it's so important. We had play testers every week come to our space. Every week we were testing and playing, with different types of people, different ages, really trying to understand what was working and what wasn't. Again, when it comes to level design, you can see in that first map that we have quite an open space. Now, this is actually really challenging because you're then having to, you're having to render this whole area where if you have walls, then you can kind of you can have a much more complex design rather than the open space. But again, we feel that this was a real point of difference that we had, was making it feel vast and open. But certainly that's a good way to change the way that you build and start with your design if you're thinking about building for a mobile, a mobile headset. So yeah, you can see in this design here, it's actually really open and you could see so much of the other spaces, which is pretty challenging. Use one button. If I can give someone a tip when it comes to location-based VR and you want to make an accessible game, I'm not talking consumer, I'm talking locations, then just one button, because then that's all they need to know. It's the only thing you need to teach them is just click this and it works, and that would work for our shields, for shooting, for picking things up, whatever it is, man, that saved us a lot. Turn off automatic updates, because man, you can hit a bush like my dad did on that zip line if you don't turn off automatic updates, because if you've shipped a product like we had and then suddenly there's a change in an update, for example, suddenly you can't turn off a Guardian, and so now your 12 by 12 game space has to be limited to 10 by 10. That happened to us. We had to, within a weekend, redesign an entire level to fit into a smaller space because we could no longer turn off a Guardian, and that's because it automatically updated. So that was not a fun weekend. So with all of those learnings about, what we'd found with design, by testing, by iterating, how safety worked between portals, how do we avoid collisions within the space? How do we make it accessible for our licensees? We want the cost to be super cheap so that they can set it up, get it running, and they can make money. And so we kind of took all of our design lessons and then all of our safety lessons, and we rebuilt a new level with, again, those aspects of fun and joy at the heart of it. And this is the product that we shipped at the start of the year, here in Wellington, and then in LA with 2-Bit Circus. So you just can have a little short watch of this current in-game footage. And so there you have our current game that we shipped this year, and we're really excited to launch, with 2-Bit Circus in America and have, hundreds of people come through and play. It was super fantastic, and it's been working, and people love it. And there's so much laughter. Every time people play, there is laughter. We're also excited that the game has been nominated for Best in Location-Based Entertainment here at the Augie Awards, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. But of course, COVID-19 has hit. And so all of our wonderful customers and locations and people that wanted to put our game out there are currently shut down. And so now more than ever, we need to find ways that we can come together socially without having to be physically together. And so, for that reason, we are now building Oddball into a consumer game. We are building it out right now into a version that you can play from your home. And that's the next part of our journey at Beyond, bringing social VR hangout hilarity to you in your house. So that's me. Thank you very much for listening, and I'd love to answer any of your questions that you have.
Jessica, thanks for joining us this morning, all the way from New Zealand.
Yeah, it's nice and early here.
Fantastic. Thank you for such a wonderful presentation. About 18 months ago, I was in the LBE space building something, and know the troubles of it. And I think it's great to start seeing these type of experiences showing up on the Quest.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, there's so much that you have to go through. It really is an R&D exercise, so much learning, but exciting to be able to have a tool like the Quest, where you just have so much flexibility now.
Definitely, and with the impact of COVID, I know that kind of the LBE space in general is struggling, but I believe it will recover. Quick question about your product: what is the licensing like? Is this something that someone, an independent operator with their own equipment, they can essentially buy a license of your software and run it? Do they need to get the hardware from you? What do those agreements look like?
Yeah, we've just been doing revenue shares with people. We find that's kind of the most kind of equal way to do it. If they win, we win. And so, yeah, you need to obviously have 6 or, maybe a couple of other quests so that you can hot swap them out. And then we just need to give you the game software so that's installed. It's also good to have some of those kind of tracking banners around. That does help with the Quest in terms of just picking up the walls and floors. So yeah, that's it. That's not too complicated.
It's far more affordable than an OptiTrack system, right?
Yeah, way more affordable than that.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for joining us. So this is the end of the gaming track. I look forward to seeing what the next product you guys build, on your platform, as well as this social platform that you're pushing. Is that going to be more of a home release?
Yeah, we're really excited about trying to push locations and homes together. So how can we potentially do this kind of cross-location play where you're at home, but maybe you're jumping into a game where people are at a location? And as you say, locations are opening back up. We here in Wellington were open last night. We had a group through having a great time. So we're very lucky in New Zealand that, we've been kind of, we're back in business here, and we're seeing more inquiries come from America. So it looks like things are starting to open back up there too.
Fantastic. And one final question from the chat: how does someone access your platform? Are you providing essentially turnkey experiences, or are you providing an SDK or a toolkit for people to be able to build their own experiences on your platform?
At the moment, it's turnkey, so they'll need to get in touch with me or my team, and then we can talk them through that process and install that software with them. But yeah, and maybe in the future we might have we might be able to do it differently, but that's what we're doing at the moment.
Well, wonderful. Jessica, thanks for joining us all the way from New Zealand, and I look forward to seeing hopefully next year what you're doing next.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to it. Thanks for having
me. Fantastic. Well, this concludes the gaming track for AWA Online 2020. Coming up next in this channel is healthcare and wellness. As a reminder, thank you to our sponsors, Titanium sponsors HP, Microsoft, Qualcomm, and Unity, as well as our gold sponsor PlugXR. The Augie Awards will be on Channel 1 starting at 11:50, and coming up next, we're going to have some great healthcare and wellness content. Thanks again for joining us for the gaming track.